You see, the more and more that I learn about planes, the more and more I find out that they only suggest and prove that the Earth is flat. It started out when NASA was assuming that the Earth was flat and non-rotating. In multiple documents talking about planes flying over the surface of the Earth, I found it extremely odd that we could assume that the Earth is flat and non-rotating and the models would work. Why wouldn't we assume reality if the Earth were spherical and spinning 1,000 miles per hour at the equator and getting slower and slower relative to getting closer to the poles? If the Earth were spinning 1,000 miles per hour east to west, okay, and planes fly 500 miles per hour, and they were flying east to west, west to east, those time differences would be extremely different. But it's like the Earth is flat and non-rotating because the time differences are like 30 minutes, okay? Think about it. That's suggesting that the Earth's probably flat and non-rotating. But it gets weirder as the planes fly faster. This is the SR-71. This plane flies 2,200 miles per hour at a rough altitude of 80,000 feet. That would necessitate it drops 836 feet a second to stay at the same altitude over the curvature of the Earth based on the geometry of the curvature of the Earth. This plane would have to drop 9.3 miles in 60 seconds. At 2,200 miles per hour, you can do some math and figure out the G-force on that. Yeah, that's impossible. That would not be good for the pilot's brain and neck. Then you can look into the instrumentation of a plane. We have what's called pitch attitude or pitch angle, which is the angle between the horizon and longitudinal axis of the plane. So this is done by a gyroscope. This gives us our pitch data relative to the horizon, which is always flat, by the way. The gyro spins on this axis and tells the plane whether it is upside down, tilting, pitched up, pitched down, relative to the horizon, because you spin it up before you fly. But the problem with this, if we took just a normal mechanical gyro, not any of the extremely fancy ones, what we should see is a tilt relative to distance over the surface of the Earth if the Earth were curved and the plane were tilting. Because if the Earth were a ball, if the Earth were a ball and a plane started here and flying around the Earth, obviously the gyro would have to be tilted as it went around the Earth. But we never see that. When we see a mechanical gyro, they never tilt like this over distance. It's like the Earth is flat. It's kind of freaking me out. If you enjoyed the video today, all I ask, share this with a fellow globie. Maybe someone you've been talking to about the shape of the Earth relative to planes. And if they suggest whether it's flat or a globe, I think here today we've definitively suggested that they suggest one way, and that is that the Earth is flat. Have a good one.
I can prove the sun is at 93 million miles away using just this strainer. The farther away the light gets, the tighter the sun rays get. Fact of the matter is, you cannot replicate these images without a local sun. End of story.
Here is a way you can prove the flat Earth irrefutably. Ready for it? The Suez Canal. That's right. This engineering marvel is over 120 miles long and completely level the entire way. No dips, no drops, just straight flat water. Now, if the Earth were truly a globe, we'd expect to see some sort of curve over that distance, right? So why is it perfectly level? Let's dive deeper into this. You've got this massive canal connecting the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, allowing ships to travel in both directions with ease. But if we're really living on a globe, shouldn't there be at least a little drop-off along those 120 miles? Even just an inch? That's what you'd expect if the Earth curved, right? So why is it completely flat? In fact, here's a little experiment for you. The next time you fly, try recording the entire flight. Just let the camera run and notice something. There's no curve. The plane doesn't dip. You don't feel yourself nosediving to compensate for the Earth's curvature. Even better, ask the pilot if they have to account for the Earth's curve while flying. Most likely, they'll look at you and say no. And let's be honest, if gyroscopes don't account for curvature, then why should we? But let's not stop there. Let's talk about emergency landings. If you look at flight patterns and emergency landings, you'll notice something odd. They only make sense on a flat Earth map. You know, the one that looks an awful lot like the United Nations logo. On a globe, these landings are way out of place. It's almost as if the Earth isn't a spinning ball, but a flat plane, just like some of us have been saying all along. And water. Let's think about that too. When you spin water in a bucket, does it form a ball? Nope. It convexes outward. It does the complete opposite of forming a sphere. Water seeks its level. It doesn't curve around a ball. It's in the very nature of how fluids behave. So why would we think oceans are bending around a globe? It just doesn't add up. Now, I know what you're thinking. If all of this is true, why would anyone lie to us? What's the motive behind convincing us we live on a spinning ball when in fact, the Earth is flat? Well, let's talk money. Space exploration is $1 trillion industry. NASA alone rakes in $69 million a day, every single day, from your tax dollars. To put that in perspective, that's more than what all the McDonald's in the world make in a day. And you can Google that if you don't believe me. The truth doesn't need to lie to win. It just is. But lies need your belief. They need your participation to exist. So why is the globe theory constantly pushed while the flat Earth idea is ridiculed? Maybe it's because the truth of our world is something they don't want us to see. Maybe they don't want us questioning the status quo.
This is an experiment that absolutely proves the Earth is not a ball and isn't spinning. It involves a helicopter. Imagine you take a helicopter and fly it up to around 15,000 feet. You can just hover there, completely still, literally not moving an inch in any direction, north, south, east, or west. Now, if you keep hovering at, say, 20,000 feet for 4 or 5 hours, you can come right back down to the exact spot where you took off. Think about what that implies. It suggests the ground isn't moving. Now, some might argue that the helicopter has inertia, but let me explain it this way. If you and I are both running on a track, and we're equally fast, and I take the inside lane while you run on the outside, who is going to win? You would, because the outside lane is a longer distance. So, when a helicopter goes up to 20,000 feet and hovers there for 4 hours, it would not only need to rotate with the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour, but would actually have to move even faster than that to end up back at the same spot. Because, in that scenario, the Earth wouldn't be connected to the helicopter, and it would have to cover more ground to land in the exact same place.
How is the Earth described going strictly off of what the Bible says? First, let's talk about the historical time frame. What did people believe the Earth to be back in the times when the Bible was written? Well, all through ancient culture, they all had generally the same depiction of Earth. It's only now that modern science says it's a sphere. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and in Genesis 1:6 says God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from above from the waters below." In the Lexham English Bible, which is translated most accurately from the Hebrew, they don't even use firmament. They say vaulted dome. In case you're wondering what a vaulted dome is, in architecture, this is a vaulted dome. In the Complete Jewish Bible, also translated very accurately from the Hebrew, they say dome in this translation. These words, firmament, vaulted dome, and dome, were brought to us by the Hebrew word rakia, which originates from a word raka, which means to hammer out or spread out. Like ironworkers do, can you join him in spreading out the skies, hard as a mirror of cast bronze? Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as molten-looking glass? The firmament is supposed to be a clue to us. In Psalm 19:1, David writes, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." And in the Complete Jewish Bible, it says, "dome of the sky." So if you think firmament just means sky, well, I doubt that David was saying the sky of the sky here. In Joshua, the sun and the moon were commanded to stand still. We're talking about a guy who is communicating with God, hearing from God, performing miracles through him, saying, "Sun and moon, stand still." Didn't say, "Earth, stand still." Could you imagine the cataclysm that would occur if that did just stop spinning and moving all of a sudden? Yikes. Oh, and also, while we're here, the Earth was created before the sun. So what did the Earth rotate around before the sun was created? Speaking of created, look at this. Is turned as clay to the seal, as in like a signet ring. So look at this shape here. Now imagine that being like Earth. Here, I found one where it's actually Earth being pressed down. Look at this nice ice wall around here. And was it Augustin Picard, who went up to the stratosphere, the first man to go, and he looked down and said, "The Earth looks like a flat disc with an upturned edge." Modern science says that we live on a ball that's tilted, wobbling, whirling, spinning, and rotating around a sun, when the Bible simply says that the Earth is on its foundations and cannot and will not ever be moved. All through ancient history, before these cultures even had an opportunity to talk to each other, they all had the same depiction of Earth in their minds as they would draw them out or write about Earth. And before they were able to talk to each other? So don't you think that they would be hearing from a divine source? What are the odds? So the men who wrote the Bible, they had this idea of Earth in their mind anyway, so at the very least, they were believing this. Whether or not you believe they heard from God on this, but either way, is the Bible true or is it not? Just like Psalm 19:1, Romans 1:20 says, "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see His invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God." So all the things that the Bible says about the earth, go test them yourself. Walk outside and stand there and say, is the sun and moon in their circuit like the Bible says? Are they moving and not me like the Bible says? Can the earth not be moved like the Bible says? Is there a firmament above that showeth His handiwork like the Bible says? Is it a vaulted dome like the Bible says? Is it as clay under the seal like the Bible says? Or is the book just hogwash?